All right, diving in today, we're looking at fasting. Specifically, its power for spiritual growth. You sent over some really interesting stuff,
Yeah.
excerpts from a Christian podcast,
Right.
and a book, God's Chosen Fast by Arthur Wallis.
Okay.
So let's unpack this together, see what we can find.
I think it's really interesting that even though our sources are, coming from a Christian perspective,
Yeah.
fasting has this really rich history
Yeah.
that goes way beyond just one religion, right? It's been around for centuries.
Yeah.
All sorts of cultures have used it as a way to, connect with something bigger than themselves.
It really makes you think, like, what is it about, denying yourself something,
Yeah.
like food,
Right.
that opens us up to those spiritual insights?
Well, if you think about it, our lives now are just so full of noise and distractions, right?
Yeah.
So fasting can be like hitting the mute button
Yeah.
on all those demands coming from outside.
Oh, I like that.
Wallace describes it as like a really intense mindfulness.
Okay.
So you're quieting the body's needs.
Yeah.
And that creates the space for the soul to kind of speak.
So it's not about, like, punishing ourselves or trying to, like, earn points or anything.
No, not at all.
It's more about, like, changing the channel, so to speak.
Exactly. Aligning ourselves with a bigger purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness, it's about observing your thoughts without judgment, right?
Yeah.
But fasting takes that even further.
Okay.
Just stripping away like all these layers of comfort and habit
Yeah.
to really get to that like core of who you are
Mm-hmm.
and what you're really looking for.
That actually makes a lot of sense. There's so much talk now about intermittent fasting,
Oh, yeah.
for all the health benefits.
Right.
Do you think maybe some of those mental benefits, like that better focus
Yeah.
or more clarity,
hmm
could that be tied to this deeper spiritual aspect?
I think there's definitely a connection there.
Yeah.
Studies have actually shown that intermittent fasting can really help your brain work better.
Oh, wow.
But the really cool part is how it changes your brain chemistry.
Okay.
When you fast, your body starts producing these things called ketones,
Okay.
and they can actually like calm your brain down
Oh, wow.
and even protect it.
Interesting.
So it's like you're feeding your brain
Mm-hmm.
by not eating.
Okay, that's wild.
It's pretty amazing.
But I gotta say, the whole, not eating for days,
Yeah.
that can be a bit much,
Yeah, I get.
The podcast mentions some pretty intense stuff,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like Moses fasting for 40 days when he got the Ten Commandments.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a long time.
that's a pretty daunting example, yeah, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
But the point isn't really to, copy these huge gestures.
Right.
Even back then, fasting looked different for different people.
Some people gave up certain foods.
Oh, okay.
Others limited their meals.
Gotcha.
And the podcast makes it clear that Jesus just assumed his followers would fast.
Yeah.
Like it was a normal thing,
Okay.
not some crazy challenge.
So it's more about finding what works for you,
Ages.
your own goals.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And both the podcast and Wallace are really careful to say, don't do it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, like what?
It shouldn't be about bragging
Oh.
or trying to like manipulate God
Mm-hmm.
or feeling like you're better than others.
Right.
True fasting, they say, should make you a better person
Yeah.
and bring you closer to the divine.
And I guess that's where this whole modern fast idea comes in.
Yeah.
Like, maybe fasting has changed as our lives have changed.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, giving up food, that's the classic fast.
Mm.
But the main idea is intentionally not having something
Right.
for a bigger purpose. So what if we take that idea and apply it to like other parts of our modern lives?
Like, what would be like an example of a modern fast?
Well, think about how much time we spend like glued to our phones and computers. you
Oh,
know?
yeah, all the time.
What if giving up social media for a whole week
Okay.
could be considered like a modern type of fast?
Mhm.
Or maybe it's about like consciously cutting back on how much we buy,
Okay.
like a fast from shopping or spending too much money.
I like that. It's like taking a break from, all the digital stuff
Yeah,
or all the buying to make room for things that actually matter.
exactly. And what's really wild is that even these like modern fasts can really affect us
Yeah.
spiritually and scientifically too.
Yeah.
The podcast talks about how disconnecting from all that information overload
Right.
can help you think more clearly
Okay.
and feel more connected to yourself.
Yeah.
And there's research to back that up. Studies show that less screen time can help you sleep better, stress less,
Yeah.
and even be more creative.
So it's not about just giving stuff up, just
No,
because
no, not at all.
it's about replacing those maybe not so good habits
Right,
with things that actually, feed us in a good way.
exactly. And that kind of leads us to another really interesting thing about fasting
Okay.
that both of our sources talk about, how it can make your prayers or your meditation practice even stronger.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Wallis has this beautiful analogy in his book.
Oh, yeah?
He compares it to, like, tuning a musical instrument.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to tighten some strings and loosen others
Right.
to make it sound good, right?
Yeah.
He's saying fasting helps us fine-tune our, like, inner instrument.
Mm.
Makes us more open to divine guidance.
Oh.
Or, for folks who aren't religious, to their own intuition and wisdom.
I've heard that meditation can, physically change your brain over time,
Yeah, it's true.
leading to more focus, better control of your emotions. Do you think fasting could boost those effects?
It could. I mean, think about it. When we fast, our body goes through all these changes.
Yeah.
Our senses get sharper.
Hmm.
Our minds get clearer.
Okay.
And we become more aware of, like, even the smallest changes inside us.
It's like decluttering your mind
Yes,
to
exactly.
make room for, deeper insights.
Right.
And a stronger connection with ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah, I like that.
It's interesting that both the podcast and Wallis are really clear that fasting shouldn't just be about, personal gain.
Right. But
They talk about corporate fasting.
Yeah,
Where
well.
communities come together.
Mhm.
The shared goal to make a change.
Yeah.
Or deal with the problem everyone's faced.
The podcast uses the story of Jonah and the people of Nineveh.
Oh, right.
Remember, they were going to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole city, like everybody from the king to, everyday folks,
Yeah.
they all fasted together
Wow.
to show they were sorry and that they wanted to change.
That's a pretty powerful example of everyone coming together.
It is.
And we see that throughout history, right?
Absolutely.
Gandhi, famously, used fasting for, social justice and political change.
Yeah.
And even today, people all over the world fast for all sorts of things. Climate change.
Yeah.
Peace. Human rights.
It's like a way of saying, hey, we're serious about this.
Yeah.
And we're willing to give up something to get our point across.
It's kind of crazy, this ancient practice that used to be about personal piety
Yeah.
and growing closer to God
Right.
can also be this really powerful tool for changing the world.
Yeah, it really speaks to how our individual actions, they can have a ripple effect and change the world around us.
Yeah.
And when we come together with a shared goal,
Yeah.
whether it's through prayer, meditation, or fasting,
Mm-hmm.
we boost that energy,
Yeah.
and that creates the potential for real change.
Okay, we've covered so much.
I know, right?
We talked about the spiritual and scientific benefits of fasting,
Mm-hmm.
how it's changed over time,
Yeah,
and even how it can impact society.
it's a lot.
What's really hitting me is that it's not like one size fits all.
No.
It's about finding what works for you,
Exactly.
your own goals,
Yeah.
spiritual, personal, or even, about the world.
Right. And that brings us back to that question from earlier.
Okay.
If you could make a modern fast that fits your life
Yeah.
and what you believe in,
Yeah.
what would that look like?
Mm.
What could you step away from intentionally
Yeah.
to make space for something more meaningful?
That's a really good question to think about.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what actually matters,
Right.
and what we might be hanging on to that we don't really need anymore.
And it's important to remember that starting any kind of fast,
Mhm.
doesn't have to be this big scary thing.
Yeah, the podcast actually talks about starting small
Yeah.
and working your way up.
Any new habit.
Yeah, exactly.
Consistency is key.
Totally. So maybe instead of jumping into a multi-day water fast,
Yeah.
you just start by skipping one meal a week
Okay.
and use that time for, reflection,
Mm-hmm.
meditation,
Yeah.
journaling,
Okay.
or maybe connect with nature.
Yeah.
Just notice how you feel during those times when you're abstaining.
And what about those modern fasts,
Yeah,
like the digital detox or the fast from buying stuff?
right.
Where would you even start with those?
Well, for a digital detox, a good place to start might be to choose certain times of the day
Mm.
or even whole days of the week
Okay.
as tech-free time. Maybe
Okay.
you put your phone away during meals
Yeah.
or spend a Saturday completely unplugged,
Hmm.
doing stuff that feeds your soul.
I like that. It's more gradual,
Right.
not so sudden.
Exactly.
What about fasting from consumerism?
Yeah, that feels really relevant now
It really does.
with all the ads and pressure to buy things all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. For a consumerism fast, maybe try a challenge like for a week
Okay.
or even just a few days where you only buy things you absolutely need.
Okay.
Really think about those urges to buy stuff you don't really need.
Right.
Use that time to think about your relationship with material things and maybe find other ways to feel happy and fulfilled.
It seems like the main thing here, no matter what kind of fast you're doing, is that intention is really important.
Absolutely. It's about making a choice, a conscious choice,
Mm-hmm.
to step away from something to make room for something more meaningful.
And as you try out different kinds of fasting, pay attention to like those little
Yeah,
changes.
there's little shifts.
Notice how your energy changes, how your mood changes,
Right.
and any new ideas or perspectives that come up.
Wallis mentions journaling as a good way to keep track of those changes
Oh, yeah.
and become more self-aware during a fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a way to hold on to those thoughts and ideas
Yeah.
that might disappear otherwise.
And remember, be patient with yourself.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like with anything new,
hmm
you're going to be tempted sometimes
Yeah,
to break your fast or go back to old habits.
it happens.
But don't beat yourself up about it.
Exactly.
Think of those moments as chances to learn and grow.
Right.
What makes you want to break the fast?
Yeah, what are those triggers?
What can you do to help yourself get through those tough times?
Exactly.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into fasting,
Yeah.
I hope you're feeling like you can explore this ancient practice in a way that works for you and your values.
Absolutely. Whether you choose to abstain from food, technology, buying stuff, or even negative behaviors, the benefits can be huge.
Yeah.
By making space in our lives on purpose, we open ourselves up to so much. More self-awareness, deeper connection, and a renewed sense of purpose.
So what will your modern fast look like? That's something to think about.
It is. The journey's waiting for you.